friends, it's Mrs. Tucker again. Today I'm going to do the second half of our story, Officer Buckle and Gloria, and I will stop and ask questions and give some answers along the way. But before I get started with that, I want to quick review what we've already gone over in our story. This would be the second part of the second read of our story. Remember, Officer Buckle and Gloria is Lesson 15, Unit 3 in our Journeys book, and our author and illustrator is Peggy Rathman for this story. And this is a humorous fiction story. Basically, that means it's a funny, fake story, so the whole author's purpose of this story is just to entertain you. The author wrote this story just to make you laugh. And our essential question is, why is it important to follow safety rules? Now, yesterday we started reading through the story and we talked about how Officer Buckle knows more safety tips than anybody else in Knappville. And every time he thinks of a new one, he writes it down on a piece of paper and he puts it on his bulletin board. He shares his safety tips with students at the Knappville school, but at the beginning it didn't seem like anybody was really paying attention. He would come in and give his safety speeches, and then it was just business as usual. Like Mrs. Topple would stand on the chair to take down her banner and the boys tripping on his shoelaces. One day, Knappville's police department bought a dog named Gloria, and Gloria went to work with Officer Buckle. And so Officer Buckle brought Gloria with him when he went to give his safety speeches at the schools. So as he's giving his safety speeches, Gloria's up there on the stage with him, and she's acting out some of the things that are going on, like keep your shoelaces tied, always wipe spills up before someone slips and falls, never sit on a thumbtack, or never leave a thumbtack where you might sit on it. And remember, when she's acting these things out, every time Officer Buckle turns and looks at her, she's sitting at attention, which means she's just sitting still, looking forward. So he doesn't notice that she's doing this, but the audience notices. The group that's watching him notices. But Officer Buckle thinks that they are finding him interesting and funny. And so he thinks that it's just because his safety tip speech is so great that everybody is having such a good time. And now, remember, all of a sudden, people were writing letters, especially his friend Claire, who says they make such a good team. She wears her safety helmet, her crash helmet all the time. Safety tip number 7. And so the schools are calling, grade schools and high schools and daycare centers, they're all calling Officer Buckle now saying, hey, come give us your speech and bring your dog with you. Remember, we talked about that right at the very end of yesterday's lesson, where we said that probably one of the reasons why people want him to bring the dog is because they've heard how interesting Gloria can be, so they want to see Gloria for themselves. And that's where we're going to pick up for today's lesson, where we left off yesterday. Okay, so Officer Buckle told his safety tips to 313 schools. Everywhere he and Gloria went, children sat up and listened. After every speech, Officer Buckle took Gloria out for ice cream. Officer Buckle loved having a buddy. So I'm going to pause and ask this question really quickly. It says, what's Gloria doing in this picture, real quick? If you look at this picture at the very top, what does it look like she's doing? And I'll zoom in a little bit so you can see that picture. What's she doing in that picture? All right, let me zoom back out a little bit. It looks to me like she is signing autographs. Kind of like she's a celebrity, like she's a star. Now, do you think Officer Buckle knows what she's doing? Looks to me like his back is facing her again. I'm thinking probably not. He probably doesn't notice that she's signing autographs. Now, here's that word buddy. Remember, that's one of our vocabulary words. Buddy means a very good friend. So let me ask this question. Why do you think Officer Buckle takes Gloria out for ice cream after every speech? It says, after every speech, Officer Buckle took Gloria out for ice cream. Why do you think he does that? Probably because he likes having a friend. Maybe he wants to give her like a reward or wants to do some fun things with her. So do you think Officer Buckle is a kind person? I think Officer Buckle seems like he's kind. He seems very nice. He treats Gloria like a friend, and he's always worried about people's safety. Remember, we talked yesterday about how he seems like he worries about people staying safe, which kind of tells me that he would be a kind person, because if he wasn't worried about that, he wouldn't bother to tell people how they can be safe. Now, there are some things in the story so far that we, the reader, knows that Officer Buckle does not know. And the author wants you to realize that. The author wants you to notice that right now, that we know some things in the story, just reading the story, that Officer Buckle, the character, doesn't know. And so what are those things? What do you think those things are? Well, obviously, most importantly, Officer Buckle has no idea that Gloria is acting out what he's saying when he's giving his speeches. He has no idea that this is even happening. So how does this make the story funny? How does it make the story funny that we know that Gloria is acting these things out, but Officer Buckle doesn't know it? Well, I think as I'm reading through the story and I'm looking at the pictures, I can kind of laugh at what Gloria is doing in the pictures. I can kind of laugh as I'm listening to the words. So I can see how she's being silly, and I can also see how he's reacting, where he just kind of looks so serious, and that kind of makes it funnier because he's really serious and he doesn't know that it's going on. So that kind of makes it funny for me. Okay. Then one day, a television news team videotaped Officer Buckle at the State College Auditorium. When he finished safety tip number 99, "Do not go swimming during electrical storms," the students jumped to their feet and applauded. "Bravo! Bravo!" they cheered. Officer Buckle bowed again and again. Now let's talk about our two characters in the story. We have Officer Buckle and we have Gloria. So let's talk about, how is Officer Buckle character different from the Gloria character? Well, obviously Officer Buckle is a person character and Gloria is a dog character. That would be obvious. But let's think about another way that Officer Buckle and Gloria are different. Officer Buckle is really kind of serious. He's a very serious kind of guy. And Gloria is just silly. And she likes to be funny. So I think that's one way that they're definitely different. Now I want you to notice here, and I've noticed it in some of the other ones too, some of our other safety tips, the author uses capital letters. But especially here, this whole safety tip, "Do not go swimming during electrical storms," that whole thing is in capital letters. Why do you think the author is using capital letters to read or to write those words? And when I'm reading them, how should I be reading them? Well, the author is writing these in capital letters so it really stands out to us, right? And I noticed, hopefully you noticed as I was reading, I kind of read them with some more expression, because if you're reading these words and they're in capital letters, you should kind of read them loudly. "Do not go swimming during electrical storms." Now, I'm not yelling it or screaming it. I'm just saying it a little bit more loudly, like I'm announcing it in a way. And so the author wants to use capital letters to show that when Officer Buckle is reading this safety tip, or as he's saying this safety tip, he has a lot of feeling, a lot of expression as he's reading, because he really cares about keeping people safe. And this one's a very important one to him. "Do not go outside during electrical storms. Do not go swimming during electrical storms." That's very important for him. He wants people to know that that's not safe. On the next page, it says, "That night, Officer Buckle watched himself on the 10 o'clock news. The next day, the principal of Knappville School telephoned the police station. 'Good morning, Officer Buckle. It's time for our safety speech.' Officer Buckle frowned. 'I'm not giving any more speeches. Nobody looks at me anyway.' 'Oh,' said Mrs. Topple. 'Well, how about Gloria? Could she come?' Now, before I go on to the next page, I want to talk about what happens in this page first. Now, I can't see the front of the television, but somehow I can figure out what Officer Buckle sees on the news. If you look carefully in this picture, if you look in the background, it looks like there's a mirror facing the television. and there's a picture, or in the mirror is the reflection of the television with what's going on the TV. And it looks like Officer Buckle sees what's going on behind his back with Gloria as she's acting out his safety tips while he's giving his safety tips. And how do you think that makes him feel? It looks almost like he's kind of shocked. I mean, it kind of looks like he's throwing popcorn in his mouth, but too, it looks like he's surprised. Like the popcorn's falling out, the drink is tipping over. It kind of maybe looks like his legs are jumping out, like he's surprised. So I think that Officer Buckle maybe realizes that the crowd's not cheering for him. They're really cheering for Gloria. Now, look at Gloria. How do you think she's feeling? It looks to me like she's a little bit sad. Maybe a little bit ashamed or embarrassed. I'm not sure. Now, why do you think Mrs. Topple wants Gloria to come to the school even though Officer Buckle won't be there? Because Officer Buckle says, I'm not giving any more speeches. Nobody looks at me anyway. And Mrs. Topple says, oh, well, how about Gloria? Could she come? Why do you think Mrs. Topple just wants Gloria to come? Probably Mrs. Topple thinks that Gloria can just act out the safety speech. That we don't necessarily need the words. Gloria could just act it out. Now I'm going on to the next page. Someone else from the police station gave Gloria a ride to the school. Gloria sat on stage looking lonely. Then she fell asleep. So did the audience. After Gloria left, Knapville School had its biggest accident ever. Now before I turn the page, let me ask this question. What happens because Officer Buckle decides not to go to school? Well, Officer Buckle doesn't go to the school. There's nobody on stage to actually give the safety tips. So when there's nobody there giving the safety tips, Gloria has nothing to act out. So she just kind of stands there, and then she falls asleep, and then everybody else falls asleep. And then I noticed down here there's a cup of yogurt or pudding or something on the floor. It says that the Knapville School had its biggest accident ever. It started with a puddle of banana pudding. Oh, that's what that was. Splat, splatter, splush. There's those capital letters again. Everyone slid smack into Mrs. Topple, who screamed and let go of her hammer. Now, what causes this huge accident? Well, there's banana pudding on the floor, which caused everybody to slip, or some kids to slip. And why does that turn into a really big accident? I mean, you know, a couple kids slipping and falling isn't a huge accident. It's still an accident, though. But it got even bigger. Why? Well, it looks like here we have some kids slipping and falling, and oh, Mrs. Topple, you're standing on a swivel chair again. Safety tip number 77, never stand on a swivel chair, Mrs. Topple. Look at that. She's standing on that swivel chair holding her hammer. Looks like she fell. Now, notice again, here we have some words that are written a little bit differently. These words aren't going straight across the page like these words are. It kind of curves up and down. So the reason why the author does this is because the author wants you to kind of see what it's like when somebody's sliding all around. So they put curvy words to kind of give you a feeling of that sliding. Also, too, here are some capital letters, which means the author wants you to read those words loudly in your head, or if you're reading them out loud, you're reading them loudly. So the author uses those kinds of words and letters to help the story be that much more interesting for us. Now, the next morning, a pile of letters arrived at the police station. Every letter had a drawing of the accident. Officer Buckle was shocked. At the bottom of the pile was a note written on a paper star. Officer Buckle smiled. The note said, Gloria missed you yesterday. Your friend Claire. P.S. Don't worry. I was wearing my helmet. Safety tip number 7. So, after the accident, what happens? Well, here's a huge pile of letters. It looks to me like everybody decided to send Officer Buckle letters telling him about what happened since he wasn't there. And one of those letters was even more important because somebody felt it was important to let him know that Gloria missed him when he wasn't there. That's good to know. Oh, here's our word shocked, our vocabulary word shocked. Remember, shocked means very surprised, very amazed at something. So why do you think Officer Buckle was shocked by these letters? Oh, he probably was shocked or sorry that they had such a bad accident. He was surprised or amazed that there was such a bad accident. Gloria gave Officer Buckle a big kiss on the nose. Officer Buckle gave Gloria a nice pat on the back. Then Officer Buckle thought of his best safety tip yet. Safety tip number 101. Always stick with your buddy. Buddy's one of our vocabulary words. It means a close friend, remember? Now, why do you think Officer Buckle wrote that last safety tip? Safety tip number 101. I think he realizes that he and Gloria really do make a good team after all. Well, I hope you enjoyed this story, Officer Buckle and Gloria. It's one of my favorite stories in our Journeys books. I appreciate you listening. Again, if you want to go back and listen to both the first half of the second read and the second half of the second read, you could get the whole story with questions and answers again. And I appreciate your attention, and I will be talking to you again soon. Bye.